So we have a quorum. I'm going to call roll and start the meeting at 6:03 p.m. Barry Johnson, I am here. Peter Cole.
Here.
Marcia Newman. Hi, Marcia. You're muted.
Hi, Barry. Here.
Hi, thank you. Adele Slaughter. Not yet. Gail Steinberg. Not yet. Melanie Winter.
Yep, here.
Thanks. Scott Mandel.
Present.
Thank you. Okay. Number 2, approval of July 26, 2022 ad hoc committee meeting minutes. I'm postponing that till we meet again. My computer was down for a couple days until today, and I just didn't get to it. So we will hold that for the next meeting. Update by the committee chair for number 3. I'm going to save that until we begin number 6. And I'll go to number 4, public comments on non-agenda items within the committee's jurisdiction. Do we have any public member of the public who'd like to make a comment on something other than tonight, what's on tonight's agenda for number 6? Raise your hand or press *9 if you do. Okay, not seeing any or hearing any. Number 5, we don't have any responses because there were no public comments. I'll move on to number 6, discussion and probable motion for the Scnc board with respect to the proposed residences at Sportsman's Lodge project at 12805 Ventura Boulevard, Studio City 91604. And I do have a proposed motion that I will read. Before I get to that, does anybody have anything, any member of the public wish to say something? Charlie Carnow, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much. My name is Charlie Carno, and I'm a research analyst for Unite Here Local 11, the Hospitality Workers Union, and very importantly, grew up going in the Valley, going to the Sportsman's Lodge, the cafe, and mostly had family stay there, and of course the late event center. We wholeheartedly agree with the description on this hotel's website that this historic Studio City hotel is more than just another Studio City hotel, and indeed we call on the hotel to be preserved. In 2013, Survey LA listed this site, including the hotel, as historically significant because of its status of a popular gathering place for people in the entertainment industry and an important part of the development of the San Fernando Valley. To quote Survey LA, Sportsman's Lodge is an important San Fernando Valley site for its evolving use from rural to urban, which mirrored the valley's growth as a roadside attraction, the valley's vibrant automobile culture, as one of the valley's early fine dining locations, and as a reflection of the community's connection to the entertainment industry. With the demolition of the event center, the hotel is an important remaining link to that history. That's why we ask that as part of this project, the hotel be preserved. This would not preclude a housing development on the site. It could also be better environmentally, as workers from the hotel could potentially live in the affordable housing created as part of the project and could walk to work. In contrast, destroying the current hotel, in addition to a loss of a historic site, could mean that workers who otherwise potentially could walk to work at the hotel or drive in from other parts of the valley may commute further afield, like to West LA and downtown, which would add vehicle miles traveled and traffic impacts. Less well known is actually the site's labor history. For example, it was one of the first hotels organized in the entire city after hotel workers got the legal right to organize, which they didn't get until 1959. As the Sportsman's Lodge website says, no other landmark hotel in Los Angeles predates the conception of the Sportsman's Lodge, and the end is yet to be written. Please support preserving this hotel.
Thank you. And I'll make note that Gail Steinberg joined us at 6:06. Gail, you are here, correct?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you. Sorry for my tardiness.
That's okay. Any other initial public comments? We will have another round, but if there's anyone right now with a public comment, all right, not seeing or hearing any, either raise your hand or press *9. I'll move on to reading a proposed motion that I have right now. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council, SCNC, opposes Los Angeles City Planning Department case number CPC-201-7012-DB-MCUP-WDI-SPP-SPR-BHCA, unless the height is a total of the Ventura Cahuenga Boulevard Corridor Specific Plan, in parentheses, VCSP, by right allowable height of 30 feet, plus the Los Angeles Municipal Code Ordinance number 179681 density bonus on menu by right density bonus of 11 additional feet to provide for the density bonus units restricted to very low income households, for a total of 41 feet. Furthermore, the SCNC opposes any requests for any off-menu waiver or modification development standard or standards that would have to be approved by the City Planning Commission, in parentheses, CPC, including a request for these 5 off-menu incentives at the site. And I have a colon there. 1, an increase in height up to 94 feet in lieu of 41 feet and in excess of the 11 feet granted by LAMC section 12.25A.25 in parentheses F in parentheses F. 2, waiver of transitional height requirements as established by LAMC section 12.21.1A.10 for buildings in a C or M zone within certain distances of an RW1 or more restrictive zones, including OS zones. 3, floor area ratio, in parentheses FAR, in excess of the 35% increase permitted under LAMC section 12.25A.25 in parentheses F in parentheses 4. Number 4, provision of a 0 foot to 0 inch in parentheses rear yard in lieu of the 20-foot minimum required per LAMC section 12.11C.3, and number 5, reduced side yards on the first subterranean level of parking to permit a 0-foot side yard in lieu of the 10 feet otherwise required by LAMC section 12.22C.20. The off-menu items that the CPC would have to approve go completely against the Ventura Cahuenga Boulevard Corridor specific plans, neighborhood and general commercial plan designation, in parentheses, the least developed of 3 designations within the VCSP. A land use designation which is a focal point for surrounding residential neighborhoods and containing a diversity of land uses such as restaurants, retail outlets, grocery stores, child care facilities, small professional offices, community meeting rooms, pharmacies, religious facilities, and other similar services. Additionally, Ventura Boulevard has the Boulevard 2, in quotes, street classification, but Coldwater Canyon Avenue only has the, in quotes, Avenue 2 classification, a much narrower roadway which carries the vehicle traffic between the entire valley and Beverly Hills and beyond. This is one of the busiest intersections along the entirety of Ventura Boulevard, and is on the critical intersection list of the VCSP. The VCSP has the purpose to assure a compatible and harmonious relationship between residential and commercial development, where commercial areas are contiguous to residential neighborhoods, as well as assuring an equilibrium is maintained between the transportation infrastructure and land use development in the VCSP corridor and within each separate community of the Ventura-Cahuenga Boulevard corridor specific plan area. That's what I have for the motion. Do we have any public comments at this point? Do we have any committee comments at this point? Go ahead, Marcia.
I just have a couple of comments. I mean, this is really thorough, Barry, and all the emails that people are sending are just incredibly thorough and detailed. But is all of this research futile? Because I met with Ben Beasley. I went there and he showed me the development, and he was very kind to show me around, tell me what they're doing. And it seems to me that this project everything is approved and it's ready to go. So is what the ad hoc committee doing? Is it even feasible for Midwood to adhere to any of these changes or to make these changes?
Well, actually, if you go to the planning department website under approved documents, nothing is approved as of this second as I'm looking at it. You can go to initial submitted documents, and they have submitted things in the last year, but nothing has been approved. And Paro Tarosian, Chief of Staff of Krikorian office, when these initial documents were submitted last summer, he told me at that time that the one thing that we could do would be to tell the CPC, which has to approve off-menu items, that we do not approve of these off-menu items and reasons for why. So the specific plan height of 30 feet, that's by right. The additional 11 feet for the density bonus that is on menu is essentially by right. But everything else they're asking for is something that the CPC has to approve. And he told me at that time, the only thing you're going to be able to say you don't want are those off-menu items. And, you know, some of us, besides, also met with Ben, as you have, Marcia, and we listened to them, and, you know, and we listened to his attorney, but it's like that's their job to tell you that they've dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's. But the fact is nothing's been approved yet, and the CPC will have to vote on these off-menu items, and all we can do is roll the dice on it. But it's not a done deal right now. So that's where we are right now. Anyone else? Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Barry. Somebody from the committee needs to give this a second. Thank you. I guess I could, but
am I a member of the public, or am I supposed to be?
I second it.
Thank you, Gail. And
Sure.
Yeah, you are, Ben, if you want to speak.
Sure. I think, I mean, let me start by saying I know this is the group of people that has invested the most time in kind of understanding this project. I think I've talked to most of you numerous times. Actually, just had the chance to meet Marcia recently, but she came over and we spent some time, and that was, I mean, with every conversation I've had, I think I've learned something about how people think about their neighborhood and how they think about this development we've proposed. And so, I appreciate that this is an extremely well-informed group about the project and about specific plan and the history and all of it. I think I'll say that, I understand the suggestion in terms of the motion of what are we approving a position, or sorry, what was this, Barry? A resolution?
It's a motion that would go to the planning department at this point because it's in their hands.
Right, but what you're proposing is you're saying as the board. So is it like a resolution of the board or a statement of the board?
Right. This is a motion that we would forward to the a board meeting.
Yep.
Theoretically, the next one where they would vote to approve or not approve this motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. No, and I think if I can, if I can, as I'm hearing it, and what I would paraphrase it to say that if the project were to comply with the development standards of the specific plan, including some, maybe it was a height bonus. I don't know if there was an FAR bonus that is part of the standard. What you're referring to as on-menu density bonus incentives, then the neighborhood council would not oppose it. I didn't hear the word support, but I heard would not oppose, or would, something like that, right?
Well, it says unless we lose these off-menu incentives. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, then I think I understand it. I mean, all I will add to this, and I don't know, I'm not. I don't want to prejudge the disposition of this ad hoc committee, but I will simply say that this committee and a lot of the conversations that I've had with individuals on this that are on this committee right now have focused on the height and the mass of this project, and I think those are absolutely major ways of describing it. But I also, can't can't let go of the fact that there are benefits to developing this property in terms of the investments it would make to the Los Angeles River, to public open space, to affordable housing, to housing supply in general, to additional retail, to building permit fees, sales tax revenue, all kinds of benefits to it. And I think that while I understand the focus of this committee is on the mass and height, I think that I'll just say that I think that the motion is fairly narrow, and most of the conversations have focused on what is not what the neighborhood council does not like, as opposed to anything that would be constructive or accretive to the neighborhood. So I think the last thing that I'll say is what a number of people have provided are constructive ideas, and a lot of them have been incorporated into the design of the project. And I'll still, I mean, regardless of wherever this ad hoc committee leads and the resolution, I will continue to be open to talking to anybody about, you know, design of the parking, design of the river, design of the buildings, you know, retail, affordable housing programs, anything like that. So, you know, Midwood is going to be, you know, we've been a neighbor, we've been a stakeholder in this community for a long, long time. I've been here for 5 years, and I spend pretty much every weekday and some weekends here on the property. So I'm always here, and we'll continue to, you know, look forward to working with you guys, and both as a group and individually. So.
All right, thanks. Let me go to Peter Cole. He had his hand raised.
Hi, you turn that down. Turn it down. Sorry. As far as constructive criticism, I'm concerned about the ingress egress of the location of the driveway for the underground parking. We see that doing any kind of that on Coldwater is an issue. I don't recall the exact details of the first DOT approved mitigation for this, but I believe that the traffic impacts were pretty serious here. And what was, and Ben, you can correct me if I get this wrong, that the traffic impacts are pretty serious, and to mitigate those, we would need dedicated right turn lanes at Whitsett and at Coldwater. From what I've witnessed, it seems like the best way to mitigate this would be to, obviously you can't make your building smaller. There needs to be another lane where your trucks and any cars can queue up coming from Ventura Boulevard into a separate lane so they can go into the property. And I would imagine ingress and egress would also need a separate lane so they can queue up so they can come in and out. So to me, that's a redesign, maybe putting the entrance somewhere else. And as you can see from the rendering that I had done by a professional architect here, I wanted to get a good 3D view of it. Having a wall of apartments with balconies facing the residence on the north side, and we can't even see this full scale of the building because the height is deceiving, because ground level is actually below the grade of this drawing. So it's a solid concrete mass, reflective sound coming at the neighbors to the north. I just think that's just wrong. And I know we spoke about, you know, if there's a problem with neighbors being loud or stereos, we can then complain and, you know, your property manager deal. That's great in theory, but just as we've seen with the construction that's happened on the landing on the Sportsman's Mall project when it shouldn't have been happening at 10:45 at night, I have no one to complain to. Building and safety, they go, we don't have any power. I'm told to call the police. They don't show up. So the only way to mitigate this is not to build it this way, is my feeling. So that's my constructive take on this. Otherwise, Barry, what you wrote is great. And I understand Ben's land use attorney said that state law kind of trumps Ventura Cahuenga specific plan. I can't speak to that. It's outside of my pay grade, but this is just too big for this corner. So anyway, my 2 cents worth. Thanks.
Thanks. Go ahead, Melanie.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, this is a very narrow motion, Barry, and I think I understand the way you teed it up in terms of Caro giving you guidance on what would be effective to comment on. My concerns are a bit different to some. I think with respect to state law, we're talking about housing, and I concur. We need housing. This project, however, has a lot more than just housing. This project has more commercial and more restaurant. And every time we build more commercial and restaurant, especially in sort of destination locations as opposed to on the boulevard, we drain the vibrancy and life out of the boulevard. We create vacancies on the boulevard. We raise rents on the boulevard. And I think that's against Studio City's interests. I know that everybody who speaks about why they live here talk a lot about the sort of town feeling and that how important Ventura Boulevard and it being, they want it to be more walkable and more pedestrian friendly. And we're sort of extending the inhospitable frontage along the road while making business difficult for smaller and existing commercial and restaurant enterprises in this neighborhood. We've seen impacts already from just the landing, hollowing out, rents going up. It's not beneficial to the neighborhood. We do need the housing. We don't need an excess of parking. And I know it's really hard. Decades of data don't stand a chance from, long held beliefs. And I get that what's happening with the climate is hard for people to, wrap their heads around. But Los Angeles may be a car city right now, but it can't be with the amount of cars we have now. These two things cannot both be in the universe. And so building an excess of parking at a site like this is irresponsible. The more parking you provide, that induces demand, it creates more traffic. This is relying on, in terms of publicity anyway, talking points, this development is framing itself as a transit-oriented development. No transit-oriented development provides more parking than is legally required. In fact, a true transit-oriented development would provide less parking than is currently stipulated. The fact that you have to go down 3 stories to do it, the fact that so much real estate goes not just to the parking stalls, but to the parking lanes, getting around, moving around, that should be housing. And we should not be going down 3 stories with the groundwater the way it is. My other concern is you're basically raising the channel wall, but you're putting anybody who is living in those residences on the riverway there at risk. We are going to see a large flood event during the life of this project. Anybody who builds and you can smile, Ben, I'm happy to send you, the data and the scientific analyses of this and the long-term historical on this. In fact, I'll drop, there's no chat. I'll find your email and I'll send you something very specific to listen to that was just yesterday with Daniel Swain, talking about this specific to Los Angeles. This is going to happen. The channels are there to protect 1950s Los Angeles, not 2020 and 2030 Los Angeles, much less 2040 and 50. So what you're doing would have been great, on the surface in 1980, it would have helped to create the situation we're in today, but it would have been a lot more fun. Now it's just irresponsible from my perspective. I think it's bad for Studio City in terms of the existing businesses, in terms of the community feel. I would support a project that responsibly developed a really great housing project here, but the commercial and the excess parking and the siting of living space in a very high risk spot are the things that make it very difficult for me. And I don't know if, I'm judging from your expression that you don't consider this constructive criticism. But this is the world we live in. And
totally contrary, Melanie. I appreciate, definitely appreciate what you said. Sorry, I wasn't doing the raise hand. I was doing the wrong emoji here.
You were giving me a round of applause.
But no, we have already talked to the civil engineers who've worked up and down the Los Angeles River specifically about the floodplains, because all the floodplain maps are outdated. They don't matter anymore. And so
right, they're from the early 80s.
We're going to have to make up our own flood map. Basically, we're not going to build, on the path. We're not going to build a foot above the path. We're going to build as high above the path as we need to, because we're need to keep people safe. That storm is going to happen sooner than we expect. So I definitely was not, that was not a facetious smile. That was like yep, we're on the same wavelength. And I think you also touched on a really, that conversation about like what's enough parking versus too much parking is kind of inherent in all of these trade-offs between what's too big and what's not big enough, what's too much housing, what's too high, what's not. So no, I'm with you, and definitely appreciate the comments.
I don't know if you've got anything to say. I don't know what your financial feasibility would be for a project like this that was simply a housing endeavor with perhaps some small component of retail along the boulevard that actually embraced the boulevard as opposed to turned inward towards the complex as you do. So it would be probably half as much retail or less than half as much retail simply as a frontage and the housing behind. I don't know if that ends up penciling out for you. I don't know how you're making your calculations, but I do think that every time you add additional retail, especially when you face it away from the boulevard, especially when you do it like at the landing where it's high end and exclusive, it creates problems for the community.
Yeah. You may not have seen our most recent design update and renderings, but we've actually have brought the retail up to the street level. That was actually one of Caro's biggest concerns when I was working with him, is that there wasn't enough retail exposure on Ventura. So
I just saw what's on the city website, and you've got it right up to the lot line, and then you've got the courtyard behind it. So that tells me that the front facing to that retail is towards the courtyard, and the frontage on the boulevard, just like with the landing, is just an inhospitable wall, and no trees, no interaction, no pedestrian friendly anything. It's a Rick Caruso special.
Oh wow, Melanie. That
by which I mean here is a special little pocket that is separate from the community. Enter my magical world that is not part of your community and is walled off from it.
I'm very much enjoying this conversation, and if the chair would like, I would love to continue to have it, Melanie, with you, or if you want to, with you or some other group of people, continue this conversation, I would love to.
I'm happy to walk the site with you. These are my areas of expertise, and we've never had a meeting.
Let's have a meeting, and I'm enjoying this conversation, but I feel like I don't want to lose the thread that Barry was on.
Right,
so.
It's relevant to the thread that I feel that the motion may be too narrow and maybe tying our hands a little bit. I think there are impacts beyond what are mentioned in the motion that I think that this neighborhood council may be remiss in not noting. And I will end with that.
Right.
And Ben, she brought up a question I have, and then we'll get to Adele. The renderings show along the river the first floor units with their sliding doors basically are at the same level as the bike path. And Melanie brought up the flood aspect. If those units are right on the same level as the bike path, aren't they doomed for flooding somewhere down the line?
Yeah, if they were, and I think we're talking about a scale that would be hard to read in some of the drawings, and if the renderings are depicting those patios right at that level, then they're incorrect, because some of the sections, if you look at the sections that are posted, they show, I think we currently anticipated like an 18-inch lift. But this is conceptual. And as I said, in the interest of a very large investment that Midwood will make, and in a property that we intend to own for a long, long time, we will do all of the requisite research and then add 12 inches, because that would be, I mean, a
but even 18
disaster
inches,
on that would be even more disaster, because it's somebody knocking a fire hydrant off of a corner on Ventura Boulevard. You know what I mean?
but even 18 inches above the top of the channel, it's not unreasonable to think that a flood could be 18 inches higher than the top of that channel.
I've designed suburban housing communities in floodplains, and I've gone through FEMA, and I've gone through U.S. Army Corps, and I understand that 18 inches doesn't mean that much. And I'm not giving you design dimensions right now. I'm saying that when it gets to actually designing it and those dimensions, we have to start over with the engineering of, you know, what this river could be in 20 or 50 years. So I'm just acknowledging the point, and it's and Melanie pointed out, and it's already something that we will consider as we develop the plans.
Okay, all right, we'll go to Adele now.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I was a bit late. I didn't really hear what your motion was, Barry. Do you mind just repeating it before I go off on my little comments?
Oh God, Adele, it's way too long.
It's way too long? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
look at it on your email, on your Scnc email address.
Okay, I will look at it. Well, and I just, having listened to Melanie, I agree with pretty much everything she said, and I just want to underscore a couple of things. You are building this as if it were a transit-oriented facility or whatever, and there is no real transit position here. There's stuff, there's like a couple of buses along Ventura and Coldwater, but it's not really a transit destination. One of the things, I know you were talking, Ben, about like people complaining about the size and the scope of the project, but I didn't hear anything about the density issues. And I haven't seen a density study. And I think that adding, you know, what is it, 520 apartments, which easily is going to add 1,000 people to that area, is out of scope for our neighborhood. And now I know what Melanie was saying was, and I agree, we need more housing, but we need more market rate housing. And 78 units is not a lot, given that you have 520 units there. And market rate, you know, those apartments are hugely expensive, will be hugely expensive. And I would like to see, what is your profit margin? What do you think you're going to make over the next 5 years, 10 years? Because you have a huge profit margin, I believe. And then, so I'm very concerned about density and about, you know, what happens when you bring a lot of density into a city like Studio City is you destabilize the community. And we are not a city of renters. We are a city of homeowners. It would be much, I feel, I mean, I don't know if anyone said this to you, but I think it would be much better if you were building a housing condo unit here, where people could buy in and live here and have what we have in Studio City, which is a place where people come here and live for 30, 40, 50, et cetera, years. So, you know, and there's all the climate issues, and the flood is absolutely going to happen. And someone had said to me that when you build the parking garage, you're going to build it like a boat. And I figure, well, that's so it will float away, you know, when the flood comes. I don't know that we have the infrastructure to add all of these toilets and all of this. And I've just heard today or yesterday, I'm not sure which, because I'm quite busy these days, but I just heard that there is the parking lot at Sportsman's is sinking, and they're having to deal with the parking lot sinking. So, you know, you're digging into the water table to create this, this three level under parking lot garage. And I feel very much that you're lacking in green open space here. You're putting buildings in and taking out, I mean, you're taking out non-significant trees, although they are significant, but non-protected trees, but we need to keep our trees. And I feel like if Sportsman's Landing was any kind of a, warning to us, if you walk around Sportsman's Landing, it's quite sterile until you get to the place where you saved one of those huge trees. And that little area is like an area of breathe a sigh of relief. I think there's a redwood tree there, and it's right there. You feel like it must have felt like when it was Sportsman's Lodge land, not now what it is. And I feel like your plans are always circumventing or forgetting about trees, but significant trees, not just trees, not twigs, right? Not 36-inch box trees. And it lacks in green open space and it doesn't lack in concrete, huge buildings for people to live in. And while that is important, green infrastructure is also very important, and it really lacks green infrastructure. And everything Melanie said, I 100% agree with. So those are my comments. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Any further? Go ahead, Scott.
Hi, thanks, Barry. I'll throw my 2 cents in and just correct me if I'm mistaken. But to the point of the motion being narrow, meaning it's not completely 100% all-inclusive, it's my understanding that the neighborhood council, along with everybody else, gets to make a pitch before the city planning commission to sort of discuss everything that isn't possible to put in an entire motion, or it would probably be pages long. So I think we could still be working to form another or a better or a more complete argument to make in front of the city planning commission, unless I'm mistaken. Also, I've used this time between the last meeting and this meeting to dig into the archives of the neighborhood council, even going back before the specific plan. And of all the projects I've come across where they're along the river, just about every single one, or if not every single one, focuses on facing Ventura Boulevard. And there's a discouragement from facing anything towards the residents who are on the other side of the river. As recently as the elder care and as far back as, I can't even remember the names of the projects that were along the river, where the focus, whether it was for TVs or sound reflection or blocking the views or looking down on people, it was all focused to face Ventura Boulevard with very little or actually nothing facing the river. And what I also couldn't find was any project where the neighborhood council approved anything that was an exception or a variance or whatever you want to call it from the specific plan. I could not find a single project that was even proposed to go over where the neighborhood council was in support of. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you.
That sounds accurate. The only thing I would add is that the river improvement, the RIO, it's River, Melanie would know better what the RIO stands for.
River Improvement Overlay Zone.
Yeah.
Thank you. The RIO encourages things to face the river, which is sort of, in opposition to what the specific plan encourages. But I believe the RIO was encouraging it along portions of the river that not necessarily have single family homes on one side of the river. And a lot of the LA River, as you know, has industrial and commercial on both sides of the river. We're sort of, here in the Valley, and particularly Studio City, we have a lot of R1 on one side or both sides of the river. So it may not be appropriate, particularly when you have something as tall as this facing a single family neighborhood on the other side of the river. So that would be my take on what you said. And I agree with you, Scott. We can't put everything in the motion. We definitely, you know, everyone would have a chance to speak at a CPC hearing. I think this motion could also, we could also have an accompanying president's letter that could have a lot of the points in that letter just recapping. And I got some good suggestions from both Melanie and Peter late this afternoon, both to the tune of what they have each spoken about at the meeting tonight. So I think a president's letter could definitely include all those additional specific points, you know, so we don't make the motion itself just pages and pages long. So, you know, anyway, we could do two things tonight. We could vote on this motion and send it to the board for the next board meeting, or we could hold off and decide if we want to change this, improve it. The fact that we don't have a president's letter yet doesn't have to keep us from voting for this motion itself, because that letter can be created between now and the board meeting if we were to pass this on to the board. So,
Harry, when is this going?
Yeah.
When is this going to the Planning Commission?
There's, like I said, there's nothing in the file right now. If you go to the planning department file, nothing has been approved. So I don't see that we don't have time on our side at the moment.
Okay, if we're not looking at, you know, something in the next couple of, I mean, in the next month or so, then we have enough time. And I think there are more conversations to be had. And I think going before the board with the motion for this next board meeting would be premature. It's my 2 cents.
And Ben, let me just ask you, the fact that there's nothing on the planning department's case file for your file, it says nothing is approved. So I don't think we're in danger of not doing something at the next board meeting in September.
When is the next board meeting?
A week from last night.
Oh, okay. You do the monthly. Oh, no. I think that I mean, first of all, notices would have to go out. There's going to be a hearing examiner hearing before there's actually a hearing where there's any kind of decision made. And I think the earliest that an actual planning commission meeting would happen would be, the very end of the year at the earliest. So
yeah, and from what I've seen, once it goes to CPC, you kind of get in a waiting line, and then they get you on when they can. So I think your assessment for the end of the year is correct, if not even into the early in the next year. So I think Melanie's correct in that we definitely do not have to push this along to the board tonight. Does anyone else have a comment on that? You all want to take a vote on pushing this on to the next meeting? Go ahead, call-in user.
Call-in user, you're muted.
Press *9. To our call-in user, press *9. I guess they changed their mind. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, a question for Ben regarding the website that has been discussed previously for the residents north of the LA River. Has it been activated yet? And when do you think it might be, if it is not yet, to keep the residents informed as to every move
Yeah.
that's being made?
Yeah, no, this has been terrible. It's been done. I mean, the fact it's effectively done, and I keep looking for permission to post it, and people keep pointing out, small typos and things like that. So I just got another round of comments this morning. It should be up next week. It is, I mean, I'll tell you, when you see it, there's not much there that you haven't already seen. It's effectively going to link out to Zemus. And if Zemus is the most updated way to track the project, I don't know if you know that, that website, but it's actually very interesting. You can look up all kinds of cases and permits and things like that on any property. And it'll link out to the documents that are already there, like the SKIA that are posted there. So, but to answer your question, next week.
Okay, go ahead, Patrice.
Yeah, hi everybody. Just a few things. I just look at this, and Ben, I mean, we've been dealing with each other for quite a few years now, and we've always had good conversations and whatever, but you've always come off as you want to be a good neighbor. And I can't see how you could actually look at this and say that this is good for Studio City. I mean, I don't know if all you guys, if you look at this pink building or whatever illustration, that little thing in the center, that's the hotel as it is right now. This thing it's so out of character for Studio City. I've lived here all my life, and it's just like, it's monstrous. And I don't understand why you have to go and build up every square inch that you may be allowable to do, instead of sticking with the character. Yes, you have to make money. I understand all that, but why did you have to push it to the extreme to where it's so out of character for all of us? Anyways, that's it. Thank you.
Go ahead, call in user number 1.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Ruth. I'm your unhoused neighbor. I had a few questions. I think at the last meeting, it was discussed about the low-income units in particular, not taking subsidy or voucher, but being priced like low income. I wasn't sure like how that works legally. Like, I'm pretty sure that if a unit is within the price range that a voucher would pay for, I think that units have to at least accept applications from voucher holders. It would be like source of income discrimination. I just like wanted to bring that up because a lot of the benefit to this, there are benefits to this plan. Like there's some cool stuff about it. And I think most of that lies in the low income units because that's needed here. The vacancy in Studio City, last I checked, I think it was the 2017 Census US Home Survey, said that there was 1,081 vacant units in Studio City, which was a 7% vacancy rate, which is pretty high. Like, and then that's just considering residences. That's not considering hotel rooms, which to me are residences also. So basically what you're doing I'm not sure if the 300 or whatever rooms or 150 in the Sportsman's Lodge are going away for like 500. So you're increasing it by a few hundred units, and like 70 something of those are low income, I think. The low income, like we need low income housing here in Studio City, and that's a really good thing to be trying to add. But I think that voucher and subsidy acceptance should be addressed before like it gets built and occupied, and people that maybe have a voucher or a subsidy can benefit from it actually. They wouldn't be able to do that if it got occupied first. The first person who spoke, or the first public comment, I think, was from the Hospitality Workers Union. So I used to work at the event center, the Sportsman's Lodge, and like a lot of people around here that are homeless have worked in places like that. And so I wanted to consider about, you know, job loss and things like that. If the Sportsman's Lodge is just sitting empty when people could be residing in it, like I think that adaptive reuse is the most green thing people can do if they're trying to be green. Like not building is the best thing to do, right? And turning the hotel into into residences that accept vouchers would be incredible. Some of them maybe, I don't know. But building isn't green. Like building and maximizing, you know, development. The bid having residences in it or converting like hotel or business space into residential, I've been trying to research that. Like it kind of baffles me. I read a report that kind of analyzed the benefits of adding mixed use, which I think has happened in bids before. Not strictly residential, but like mixed use, which it's good to be adding housing units, but again, who do they benefit? And are they just displacing buildings that already exist? That's not really like a net positive for anyone except for the developer who's making the profit. Oh yeah, and the flooding thing, like the river gets to the bike path when it gets really heavy rain. Like if it's just literally to the level of the bike path, I don't know where the bioswale would end up. Like maybe that's just a bad rendering or something, but that definitely that would definitely be a concern. I don't want to oppose low-income housing. Like I'm a homeless person. I would definitely benefit from low-income housing. There's a guy that used to live under the parking structure that's still around here. He would benefit from low-income housing. Like, so we're trying to find something to support about this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Peter.
Hi, once again, can you turn that down? Sorry. I agree with Ruth that building is not green. And if Midwood has owned this since way back when, I would imagine the note on this has been paid off a long time ago. So you probably don't need to maximize what the footprint of your project here. You're just trying to make money, which is great. We all want to make money. Anyway, back to the motion. Barry, it's a great motion. I support it, but if we do have time, the few things that Melanie and I talked about that are left out that may go into a president's letter, maybe we can talk about putting that into the motion. But if there's no hurry, we should, I think, reconvene maybe in a couple of weeks and discuss that. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Melanie.
I just wanted to correct something Adele said earlier, and I know that Studio City thinks of itself as a community of homeowners. Studio City is not a community of homeowners. We're a lot more diverse than you think we are, and there's an awful lot more renters than you think there are. It's a little closer to 50-50. Some analysts say that there are more renters than owners. So it's just, I know we all want to live in the 50s and where cars are the best thing in the world and it's all suburbia here, but that's just not where we are and it's not where we're going. And so yeah, just had to put that out there. Thanks.
Thanks, Melanie. And I was checking something online a few minutes ago because Adele spurred my interest. And actually, there are more rental units than single-family units in Studio City units. But in terms of population, there's still more population in single-family homes than the apartment rental units because
it's still pretty
there's
close,
potentially,
and it's still pretty
Yeah.
close in terms of a 50-50. Units wise, there are more rental units. Population wise,
Right.
it's closer to 50-50, but we have to stop trying to define ourselves as some 50s suburban thing that we're protecting the character of. It's just not helpful, and it's not accurate.
I don't think I'm trying to define ourselves by some 50s thing. I would think that's the furthest thing that I'm trying to do. But I am trying to say that a population that quickly gets massive amounts of renters in it destabilizes what we have now, which is a more stable population of people who come and live here for years and years. And
I'm a renter,
my
Adele.
point, I know you are,
here
Melanie,
26
and
years,
I know
and
you
a
are.
lot of renters
You know what? I
have.
listen to you. Please listen to me. Please listen to me. And my point is that we want to keep a more stable community and not have people just coming and going. And you're not someone who's come and gone. You're someone who's stayed here. That's a good for you. And I'm sorry if you'd like to own a place, but my point was maybe they could have some kind of condo situation there at Sportsman's. It's a beautiful piece of property, and it's so too bad that it's being maxed out with block, cement block housing, not a lot of green. And what if there was some kind of a hybrid of people who could buy there and people who could rent there, and that you would find something that was good for everyone and something that was more stabilizing for the community. Density, when you have increased density in a community, it can upend the community, and that is something I don't think you want either, Melanie. So that was my point.
I support your notions on more green. I just, from all of my living in this world and the research in this world, the notion that renters are not stable and that density upends a community, I contest those things. And
well,
just a second, I think it's not. I think it's not helpful.
Some of the articles.
I think it's not helpful to effectively characterize, nearly 50% of the community as unstable and not committed to.
I'm saying that if you rush and get many, many more people coming in, like 500 apartment units, and if you add to it by exponentially, that could be destabilizing.
If there is enough affordable housing and enough low-income housing, it's going to be a net benefit because we're going to get people housed. And from what I've heard in the discourse of this,
what about those 1,000 apartments that are sitting empty?
What I've heard in the discourse of this community, that is the number one concern. So I'm just trying to, bring a slightly different perspective as someone who's lived in denser communities.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks to both. Go ahead, call-in user.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate what you said about renters. There's homeless people that have been here for decades. Like, there's a few of them. There's a few dozen of them. That's like when you're saying stable, but somebody's been here for decades, you're saying something else. It's coded language. You're saying that it'll bring poor people here or people that you don't want to be around. And what's really funny to me is the contradiction that, like, what's there now? A hotel. That is literally the definition of transience that you're serving with a hotel, right? Residences are more stable than hotels, which cater to transients. I think that there's a lot of coded language, a lot of we want to make Studio City a certain way. Like, we want to have only owners here. Well, this meeting is mostly owners usually. In the neighborhood council, the seats are mostly given to owners, right? But that's not how the composition of Los Angeles and Studio City actually is. And a lot of the people that are the most stable here, that have been here for 40, 50 years, a lot of them are not owners, and some of them are not even renters. So thank you.
Thank you.
I always appreciate
Thank you.
Go ahead, Patrice.
So, excuse me. So following up on what Melanie had to say. So I have owned my property for 26 years and I'm right across from Sportsmen's, as you all know. So I have that apartment building that's at Coldwater and the river right cat a corner to me. So for 26 years, I have picked up dog. They come around to my yard. I pick up after their dogs. I pick up after their trash. They party on their balconies. They just when I was a few nights ago, they were smoking pot out there. I can't even sit in my backyard. I'm not saying that all renters are like that. I've been a renter in my past as well, but there's a different type of respect for the community from renters that are transient versus people that have a respect for their own homes and they have an investment in the community. People that come and go don't, and it's very true. What Adele said, it's very true. Anyways, good night.
Thanks. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I'll reactivate Ben with this question because everyone's kind of forgotten about him. He's got that smile on his face. The infrastructure, Ben, power, water, sewage. This is, everyone stated, and there's no question about it, this is going to be a massive addition to the corner of Ventura and Coldwater. Now, we had a water main burst, 2005, 2006? It was a while back. They're currently working on stuff on between Coldwater and Sunny Slope on Ventura Boulevard. But how much of a strain do you think this might be on our water, power, sewage in the general vicinity? Any thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, first of all, that was an entire section, maybe 2 sections of the SKIA document. The first thing we had to do is we had to submit all of our building plans and calculations of plumbing fixtures, both in the residential and then the retail restaurant spaces, to the Department of Water and Power. It went to the Water and Power Board, and then they adopt basically it's not a project approval, but it's essentially a statement of adequacy in terms of water service. So I think it's called a water supply assessment. So we have that. In terms of electrical power, buildings are becoming more and more powered by electricity instead of gas, and that's for climate change reasons. And so the electrical capacity in the area is pretty substantial, and there's lots of commercial businesses, there's lots of main lines running up and down Ventura Boulevard. So I don't think we have a capacity issue in general. Though one of the things we do need to understand is how we get this much power into a building like this, continue to serve the retail component that's existing. The sewer capacity, we actually have a sewer line that runs in Coldwater and runs in Ventura, and we had to examine those when we built the shopping center, and so we feel very comfortable with that. And I think the other thing, if and some of you may have experience with the kind of civil engineering fluid dynamics of this stuff, but it is remarkable to me, and I'm definitely a layperson, that the difference between the capacity of a 4-inch line and a 6-inch line and an 8-inch line is geometric. And I think the shopping center is served by a 6-inch sewer line. I mean, it's this big. It's not that big for all of these shops. And so you turn that into I don't know off the top of my head, I think it's a 12-inch, 2 12-inch lines that will serve it. Like it's all engineered. And then the line that it drops into, it ends up being kind of literally a drop in the bucket, inconsequential in terms of the overall capacity that these lines have in Ventura and Coldwater. So, that doesn't concern me as much as the flooding over the river does. but no, but seriously, it's all quantified. It's all quantified in the SKIA, and you can see it. And again, we would be remiss if we didn't analyze that stuff before we move forward with these plans, because we would be living with a pretty bad situation if we didn't.
Okay, go ahead, call in user.
Hey, I think like when there was an earthquake a few decades ago, there was like liquefaction or something of the soil on the river. Basically, the earthquake was centered up north, and then it reverberated all the way to like the VA or something hospital, and then the downtown. I know like the Midnight Mission was collapsed or caved in. I think that this close to the river, there is some seismic activity. I don't know why, but I noticed that when I was researching. I'm sure that you've researched all of that and gotten everything up to code, but that should really be like a bigger concern about this density than all these coded language factors of like poor people coming to live here. I would be more concerned about the safety, like the physical safety of how this is going to not like, because like, okay, when we have like a building that's built braced for an earthquake, the additional factor of the soil liquefying, like I don't know the scientific words to describe it, but
yeah,
it like goes down the river and it causes like building collapses near the river. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrice?
So one last thing, in agreement with Ruth, my house directly across was red tagged during the earthquake and had to totally be rebuilt because of liquefaction. So you can see it right in the picture there. I'm directly across the river. So it's definitely something I think that should be looked at, especially with a heavy project like that. Anyways, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so at this point, I was going to make a motion to table this. Do I have a second for that? Anyone?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Melanie.
Oh.
Any public comment on us tabling, a motion to table? Any committee comments on the motion to table?
I just want to say, Barry, I think we're actually postponing it. We're not actually tabling it. We're postponing it to the next meeting. Tabling means there's urgent business that's going to come before the motion, and we're going to address the motion in a few minutes after the urgent business. That's one of those Robert's Rules of Order fallacies that's been going on for years. So
friendly amendment. I move that we postpone.
Second. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
Okay.
And Ben, can you just get, Ben, if you can get my email from Barry or something so that we
I'm going to see if I have your email.
Just winter@theriverproject.org.
You both should have each other's because I think you sent them.
Oh, there you
to
are.
Everyone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Shoot me an email, we'll connect. Thanks.
I will do it right now.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor of postponing? Raise your hand. Yes, or say yes. I'm a yes.
Mandel, yes.
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 All right, I got everybody. Thank you. Unanimous. Thanks. Let me just say, in the meantime, for our committee members as well as anybody else attending tonight, feel free to email me your thoughts on how we might change this or items for a president's letter versus the main motion. And if you're a member of the public, you can email the SCNC, and we'll have another meeting where we pull all this stuff together and finalize something at our next meeting. Go ahead, Adele.
No, that was just me voting yes.
Oh, thanks. Okay. Number 7, then, comments from committee members on subject matter within the committee's jurisdiction. Does anybody have anything else within our jurisdiction? Since our jurisdiction is rather narrow and that was agendized tonight, I guess we don't really have any. And
I'd like to comment.
yeah.
I don't know if this falls into anything, but we're talking about the Sportsman's Landing and everything going on there. I had to have a lunch meeting the day it was raining. I don't even remember what day it was, but not that long ago. And all the entrances were closed. And people were making U-turns and moving around because nobody knew how to get into the building or into the complex. And I parked out on Ventura Boulevard. It was amazing how many people didn't recognize that there is a fire hydrant, and we're parking right close to it. But that just goes along with the chaos and confusion about the center in general.
And that fire hydrant has since been decapitated, let's say. And
wow.
The reason for that is that you're adjusting the parking arms where they are. Is not the reason why some of the entrances for cars were closed?
That's right.
For what?
So they're moving, you know, where you drive in on Coldwater, the cars were backing up, so they're moving the lift gate arm farther into the property so more cars can be there. So they're working on a problem. That's why it was closed the day you went to that side. So
well, it's kind of interesting only because it didn't tell you. It said that it was closed and go to Coldwater. When you got to Coldwater, it said go to Ventura. I gave up and I found a parking spot on the street that 2 people made U-turns that took before I got there. Anyway, it wasn't good. Just making a note.
All right, thanks.
I have one note as well. I just want to know when street trees are going to be planted on Ventura Boulevard, because palm trees don't cut it, and it's a desert there. And I'm hoping that we're planning for shade trees on the boulevard by the landing.
Yeah.
Are there tree wells there now that don't have anything in them?
Yeah, that's the decomposed granite blocked out of the concrete. So those are all part of an R permit. There are street trees on Coldwater and on Ventura, as well as benches, trash cans. I think there's one more piece of street furnishing. So that's part of the R permit. In order to pull an R permit with the city for Ventura Boulevard, this project, and I think anything that faces Ventura Boulevard, has to include pavers. And this is, I'm going to take you into the weeds for a minute, but the pavers that are required by the planning department are not approved by the Bureau of Engineering. And so I've had to go through a program called DSIG, which is the Department of like Special Investigative Special Investigations Group. And we've basically been testing the strength of the grout on those bricks for about the last 4 months. We get them tested, they fail. We get them tested, they fail. So if you walk over, to the east towards the subway, you'll see some pavers that are set and like kind of sawed. Some of them are sawed out. That's the testing that the city's doing. It shouldn't be this hard to put brick pavers into a sidewalk, but lack of coordination between the planning department and Bureau of Engineering means that we've got to go through this kind of unusual test. We've got another test tomorrow morning, and if we pass it, then we can get our R permit, and then we can install the trees, and we can finish painting the curbs and doing all that fun stuff. The street trees are the specific plan guideline set of palm. It's a rhythm of palm and then Chinese pistache alternating.
All right, thank you for that explanation. Anybody else on number 7? Number 8, closing comments by the committee chair. I pretty much said what our next course of action is we will have at our next meeting, we will refine all this. But in the meantime, please email me with more of your thoughts, as both Melanie and Peter did earlier. It was very helpful. And then we can incorporate items both into the motion and or a president's letter. So thank you. Number 9, adjournment. I make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Melanie. Thank you. All in favor, say yes or raise your hands. Yes. I'm a yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Got you. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned till our next meeting. Thanks for attending. Bye.
Good night.